Germany must be ready for war by 2029. Those are the words of Germany's Defense Minister Boris Pistorius, spoken to the German parliament at the beginning of June, and they're a reflection of the gradual awakening of NATO as a whole to the threat of Russia. NATO increasingly believes war with Russia is coming. Russian President Vladimir Putin has only fanned the flames of those beliefs, speaking numerous times about how Russia will have to retaliate for what it sees as NATO's encroachment on its special military operation in Ukraine. The most recent of these threats came in mid-July 2024, with Putin's spokesperson Dmitry Peskov claiming that Russia would target the major European capitals in response to the United States and its plans to deploy hypersonic missiles in Germany. Given that specified region, cities like Munich and Berlin would be obvious targets. We have enough capacity to contain these missiles, claims Peskov, but the potential victims are the capitals of these countries. Europe is a target for our missiles. Our country is a target for US missiles in Europe. Putin believes a missile standoff is coming. He also believes that Russia will be able to overwhelm the major cities in each European NATO member country with aerial bombardments of missiles, drones, and aircraft. But he has failed to account for one thing. NATO knows how Russia would strike, and it has several German-made air defense systems ready to deploy at a moment's notice if Putin's missile threats come to pass. Each of these systems offers powerful countermeasures against the likely Russian approach to war with NATO. They are each formidable. However, there is one system that stands above all others, the one that Russia truly fears, that could prove the one most capable of turning the tide of war in NATO's favor. Stay tuned if you want to learn about that impressive piece of technology as we run through 5 German-made air defense systems that have shocked Russia. We start with the Millennium Gun. Designed in 1995, the Millennium Gun began life as a land-based anti-aircraft weapon. Created by the Swiss company Oerlikon, which has since been acquired by Germany's main weapons manufacturer Rheinmetall, it is essentially a large cannon that can fire a staggering 1,000 rounds per minute when used at its maximum capacity. The weapon can also be set to fire single shots, with which it reaches rates of fire of 200 rounds per minute. Oerlikon soon realized that their new anti-aircraft gun had the potential to be adapted for naval use, with 2003 seeing it enter service as a shipborne cannon. Said cannon is gas-operated and fires using a revolving mechanism that includes 4 chambers. The Millennium Gun also has a triple-coil muzzle velocity gauge and a fuse setter that allows it to fire advanced hit efficiency and destruction, or AHEAD rounds, in addition to its standard 35mm rounds. AHEAD rounds are very interesting from an anti-aircraft perspective, as they're capable of splitting apart into several rounds just before striking a target. The fuse setter plays a key role in this process. 2 of the Millennium Gun's 3 coils are set around 3.9 inches apart, with the weapon using these coils to measure the intended projectile velocity. Through these calculations, the gun determines a setting for the fuse that ensures it achieves a proper flight time. That setting gets sent to the fuse using both the 3rd coil and a specially designed electro-induction system, with the data turning the fuse into a precise timer that uses the flight time calculations to detonate the projectile just before it strikes the target. The result? A projectile that can shred multiple surfaces in multiple places. The Millennium Gun weighs 992 pounds and is a little over 13 feet long. It's also capable of firing armor-piercing, discarding sabot or APDS and high-explosive incendiary or HEI rounds, making the gun exceptionally versatile. However, it's the combination of exceptional range and high-speed firing that makes this weapon truly dangerous to Russia. A 1.65 AHEAD round has a keep-out range of 11,500 feet when fired at an attack helicopter or fighter aircraft. Though that drops for other usages, the range is 6,570 feet for cruise and guided missiles and 4,920 feet for sea skimmer missiles, it still means the gun can dismantle most aerial threats before they ever come into close range of a target. As for the speed of fire, the Millennium Gun can rattle off AHEAD rounds at a speed of 3,445 feet per second, with HEI and APDS rounds being even faster, 3,854 and 3,950 feet per second respectively. It's this versatility that will have Russia so scared of the Millennium Gun. Rheinmetall says the weapon system is equally capable of engaging several high-speed asymmetric targets when used in an anti-surface role, as well as covering the full range of Russian threats in an anti-air role. These threats include unmanned aerial vehicles or UAVs, which Russia may try to use to swarm ships or land-based targets. It's also still effective for its original land-based usage. The Millennium Gun can handle rocket, artillery, and mortar fire. In the Millennium Gun, NATO has a counter to most of the weaponry Russia has been using in Ukraine. This is a country that fires around 10,000 artillery shells per day in Ukraine, with the Millennium Gun capable of shredding the artillery systems that fire these shells. Any Russian attempts to establish aerial dominance over Europe or its waters could be met with similar fire. Worse yet for Russia, the Millennium Gun has naval and on-land variants, offering coverage no matter how Russia chooses to attack. And again, Russia has burned through a ton of its stock in the Ukraine war already. Over 340 planes, along with 325 helicopters, have been shot down since the beginning of the Ukraine war. The Millennium Gun could easily add to those figures if Russia enters a war with NATO. And this is only the start. Where the Millennium Gun can rattle off 1,000 rounds of artillery, missile, and plane shredding rounds per minute, the next air defense weapon provides NATO with sorely needed mobility: the Sky Ranger. Also developed by Oerlikon, meaning it's now manufactured by Germany's Rheinmetall, the Sky Ranger is a mobile ground-based air defense, or GBAD, system that is reminiscent of a tank. Army Guide says that it's deployable in all weather conditions and works well in day or night conditions. But it's the three main components that make up this anti-air system that make it dangerous to Russia. The first of these is the Sky Ranger SRCN, which is the main command post vehicle that's equipped with the brand new S-band ASA multi-mission radar, AMMR, along with a separate reconnaissance radar. Combined, these radars allow a Sky Ranger vehicle to track aerial threats such as drones and incoming missiles. As for dealing with those threats, the Sky Ranger has two options. There's a Sky Ranger gun vehicle, which is equipped with a KDG 35mm revolver cannon and carries at least 252 rounds. That cannon fires even faster than the Millennium Gun, as it has a rate of fire of around 1,200 rounds per minute, ideal for taking out drones and damaging Russian aerial assets. Like the Millennium Gun, this component also uses programmable ammunition, with which the user can calculate time delays that allow the cannon to adjust to firing on even the smallest aerial targets. There's also the Sky Ranger missile launcher, which is a guided missile system that can be used to take out drones, incoming missiles, and even aircraft. Stinger and Cheetah missiles are the weapons of choice here, with both being capable of taking out helicopters and low-flying fighter jets. But the most worrying thing about Sky Ranger for Russia is that it's a modular system. One or all of these components can be integrated into almost any wheeled or tracked vehicle in NATO's arsenal, meaning NATO can transform even a simple armored vehicle into a fully mobile aerial defense unit in a matter of days. In some cases, it's possible to connect as many as 6 Sky Ranger guns or missile launchers to a single vehicle, creating a fully mobile solution that will be a clear threat to any aerial strikes Russia attempts on NATO soil. And there's more coming. Rheinmetall says it's working on several new weapon systems to integrate into its Sky Ranger catalog, with each adding more versatility to an already remarkably modular system. These include the Skynight missile launcher, which is a short-range air defense missile that's capable of destroying artillery shells and guided missiles. Skynight will have a 3,700-mile range when utilized against hard targets, with that range rising to 6,200 miles when engaging soft targets. Worse yet for Russia, a single one of these missile launchers can carry 60 missiles and launch at a rate of 5 missiles that each track individually assigned targets, perfect for handling saturation attacks such as those Russia has used often in Ukraine. There's also the high-energy laser, which Rheinmetall believes will be ready for deployment in 2025. The laser has scalable performance, with the user being able to adjust between 10 kilowatts and 60 kilowatts, and will be effective against drones. It's also a cheap weapon. The cost per engagement will be far lower than the Sky Ranger cannon due to the laser not requiring traditional rounds. Add to all of this the development of new sensors, such as the Sky Ranger Multi-Sensor Unit S that will have a detection range higher than 12.4 miles, and you get a modular system that NATO can use to quickly adapt armored vehicles to handle aerial defense in multiple capacities. All of this is bad news for Russia. Through Sky Ranger, NATO gets an anti-air system that's at the top of its class when it comes to tracking incoming threats and dealing with an array of weapon systems. Drones can easily be destroyed via its cannon, missiles, and upcoming laser systems. Its sensors are so powerful that Sky Ranger can detect incoming missiles and aerial threats from several miles away. And again, the modularity is a key feature. Any NATO nation equipped with this system can rapidly convert almost any armored vehicle into an anti-air defensive unit in a matter of days thanks to Sky Ranger. Given Sky Ranger's capacities, it's likely that NATO would deploy it on the ground while using the ship-installed versions of the Millennium Gun to offer a first line of defense against missiles and drone attacks. NATO already has comprehensive anti-air defenses thanks to these 2 German-made systems alone. But it gets even worse for Russia with the introduction of the next system, Skyguard. Requiring a crew of 4 people, the ground-based Skyguard is a layered air defense system that combines cannons and missile launchers to offer close-range options. Think of it like a third line of defense against Russian aerial threats. Any that get past the Millennium Gun and Sky Ranger systems could still get taken down by Skyguard. The system combines two proven fire control systems, with the first being a pair of 35mm towed anti-aircraft guns. These cannons have a range of about 2.5 miles, making them effective for short-range combat against low-flying helicopters, bombers, and fighter jets. That's concerning enough for Russia. As far back as December 2022, Forbes reported that Russia had switched to tactics that saw its pilots flying low to avoid Ukraine's air defenses. If Russia tried to do the same thing in a war with NATO to avoid the Millennium Gun and Sky Ranger systems, it would face Skyguard systems, capable of shredding their planes and helicopters with close-range fire. The potential Russian losses would be staggering, and that's without mentioning Skyguard's missile systems. Its cannons are paired with two surface-to-air missile launchers that can be configured to fire a Speed A, Sparrow, SAH-VR, or ADATS missiles with an effective range of 4.3 miles. Each is fired from a 4-round launcher mounted onto a carriage of the anti-aircraft system, again showcasing the modular approach that was seen in Sky Ranger. That modularity also allows the installation of different launchers, depending on the type of missiles being used. Finally, the system combines a pair of radars, a pulse Doppler, search and pulse Doppler tracker, to allow the crew to quickly identify and fire against any threats as they emerge. So where does all of this leave Russia in a potential war against NATO so far? While it's not accurate to claim that Russia's aerial threat is completely negated by these three systems, Russia's sheer numbers mean that some of its missiles, drones, and planes will get through. It'll still see many of its aerial assets get destroyed quickly. The combination of the Millennium Gun and Sky Ranger gives NATO long-range anti-air capabilities from land and sea. Skyguard would likely be used to defend military targets by offering close-range defenses against any Russian aerial assets that make it through the long-range defenses. And it gets even worse for Russia. It will also need to find a way to overcome Sky Shield. In many ways, Sky Shield is a system that perfectly complements Skyguard. It's another close-range anti-air weapon, with the key difference being that it's almost entirely unmanned, with the 7-person crew being separated from the guns themselves in every instance. Army recognition highlights this, showing that each of the guns is operated by a 2-person crew positioned at a mobile desk around 165 feet away. The same goes for the single-person crew operating the sensor unit, as they also get about 165 feet of separation. As for the command post used to control the gun and analyze the data its radar systems pick up, that can be stationed up to 4,920 feet away from the guns and sensor unit, with the sensor unit also positioned up to 1,640 feet away from the guns. Why does this all matter? Russia will have to destroy 2 guns, a sensor unit, and a command center in separate attacks to take a single Sky Shield completely out of commission due to the sheer spread of the assets. That creates even more risk for Russia's pilots, especially if they're coming in low to take out the command center. They'll be fired on by the guns as they do, with the command center being positioned far enough away that it'll be impossible for a Russian pilot to track the guns as targets while they try and take it out. It's an extremely clever system. Speaking of Sky Shield's guns, the typical system has 2 35-1000 revolver guns capable of firing 35mm ahead rounds. You already know how effective these rounds can be from the description of the Millennium Gun, with their ability to break into smaller rounds just prior to impact, making them akin to highly precise shotgun pellets. Army recognition says that just 25 rounds of a head break up into 3,800 sub-projectiles, meaning each round contains 152 pellets. Some Sky Shield units come with 4 of these guns, enhancing NATO's aerial defensive options further. Ahead rounds are especially effective against drones, making them ideal for saturation attacks in which Russia attempts to use a fleet of drones to take out a target. The same applies to missiles. Multiple guns means Sky Shield can fire on several incoming missiles at once. Similar to the Millennium Gun, each of Sky Shield's guns can fire up to 1,000 rounds per minute, with the time between detection and firing on a threat a mere 4.5 seconds. Think about what that means for Russia if its aerial assets run into a single Sky Shield deployed at a target. Anywhere between 2,000 and 4,000 rounds per minute can be fired on a target within 4.5 seconds of detection, meaning that the target is shredded before it has a chance to cause damage. Add to all of this a 2.48-mile range of the cannons, and you have a system capable of taking out missiles and drones long before they reach their targets. This is all without mentioning Sky Shield's missiles. NATO forces have the option of adding a pair of Vorad guided missile launchers, which can be integrated directly into the main gun units and extend Sky Shield's range dramatically. With missiles, the weapon is capable of taking out targets at a range of up to 4.97 miles, with these missiles also likely to pose a greater threat to incoming aircraft than the cannons alone. Add to all of this the mobility of the guns, that can be palletized or carried in the beds of trucks, and NATO has a semi-mobile anti-air system. That brings us to the final German anti-air weapon Russia would have to contend with in a war against NATO: Skynex. In January 2024, Germany announced that it would provide Ukraine with a pair of Skynex air defense systems to help Ukraine combat the mass missile, artillery, and aerial attacks Russia used to such great effect during the winter of 2023. Each of these systems costs $100 million to manufacture, and like Sky Shield and Sky Guard, provides close-range defense against missiles, drones, and artillery shells. However, there are two key differences between Skynex and those other close-range systems. Skynex is modular, and it's powered by the incredible Skymaster command and control system. Starting with Skynex itself, the Kyiv Post describes it as a modular and mobile anti-aircraft system, with each of its components being containerized so they can be transported between locations quickly. Once unloaded, Skynex can be installed on the ground, again like Sky Shield and Sky Guard, or operated directly from a compatible armored vehicle. Each system comprises up to 4 35mm Oerlikon Mark III revolver guns, which have an effective combat range of 2.48 miles and achieve a nominal rate of fire of up to 1,000 rounds per minute. By now you're likely seeing plenty of similarities with the cannons used in the other close-range systems discussed, as well as the Millennium gun. In rapid single-shot mode, the gun achieves a firing rate of 200 rounds per minute, and like many of Rheinmetall's other air defenses, the cannons can be equipped with lethal ahead rounds. Each gun is mounted in a remotely controlled turret, with directions coming from both a distance command center and its array of radar and sensor equipment. Key here is the built-in fire processing unit, which can acquire and engage targets automatically while completing calculations in seconds to ensure the guns fire accurately on their targets. For now, we want to know what you think about Germany's highly advanced anti-air weapons. Are they an example of how NATO can use superior technology to quell the Russian threat? Would Russia be able to find a way to counter these weapons and establish aerial dominance over Europe? Tell us what you think in the comments, and thank you for watching the video. Now go and check out how the German military will become Europe's most powerful, or click this other video instead.